Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, aka Friends of Fatherless Daughters on Instagram. And I believe that everyone can live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And so my mission is to help people to deal, heal, and to fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal with the pain, and fulfill your purpose. So again, thank you all for joining us today on our 12th episode of the podcast. And I'm here with another guest, and I'm going to let him introduce himself at this time. Have the floor.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I want to first and foremost say thank you for having me. I'm Rod Richard, and for the last 13 years, I've been a strength and conditioning coach at every level, college, professional, high school, and everything in between. Up until about the last 2 months ago, I stepped away from my job to become a stay-at-home father, right? During the pandemic, I realized, even though I was very intentional about the time I spent with my family, that I wasn't spending enough. So I stepped away to make sure I continue to do what's my actual passion is fatherhood.
Okay, cool. And so I'm glad you mentioned fatherhood because that's what we're gonna talk about. We're gonna jump right in it because I know that you have a daughter. So you have two daughters, and I am a girl dad myself. So whenever I'm talking to a girl dad, I ask two questions straight off the bat. Number one is, what does it mean to be a girl dad to you? And then what has being a girl dad taught you about yourself or about life in general?
Oh man, that's super. Okay, so being a girl dad is like, I don't know, like I've never had a son, right? But like I coach
Okay.
athletes, I coach young athletes, and I know the difference between coaching, youth boys and youth girls is like night and day, right? Like the girls are so much more affectionate. Like they really care about you. The dudes are like, coach, whatever, right? And
Right.
so with my daughters, right, it's like it's the most fulfilling thing in the world, right? Because they have an amazing relationship with their mother, but like there's just a certain way they look at me or the way they like speak, right? Or just like how you come in the room, they run and jump on you, throw their arms around you. Like there's nothing like it in the world. But as far as I'm a brother to four sisters. I have a mother and a stepmother. Like grandmothers, like a bunch of women in my life. And so the way that I am around women hasn't changed because of my daughters, right? Because I've kind of always been sensitive to that. Always been really respectful. I think it definitely forces me to be a little softer. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I'm
Right.
not I'm not a soft dude in any stretch of the way, but like I'm very like caring and loving with my daughters. Not that I wouldn't be if I had sons, but I just feel like it pulls it out of you for sure. Like you could be the toughest dude in the world, but when that little girl looks you in the eye and says "Daddy," right, it melts your heart no matter who you are.
Right. Right. Uh, uh, so I don't have any biological sons, right? So my daughter is my only biological child, but I have four stepsons, right?
Okay.
So I can let you know right now it is a difference between between sons and daughters, and like you said, your daughter just pulls something different out of you as a man
Mhm.
and as a father. You're newer in the game than me. My baby just turned 18 this year. So I really don't have a baby no more. She grown years old. So so she's grown up a little bit. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you do. And I know you have a podcast, and
Mhm.
and one of the things that you also started your organization is Forfeit Fatherhood. That's how I want to make sure I wanted to say it right. Okay,
Yep.
so tell us a little bit about that because I'm really interested in that.
So forfeit fatherhood, like I mentioned, I'm a strength and conditioning coach, right? And so I worked with as a working in Major League Baseball. I had a bunch of pro guys who had they have kids, and then I worked in the college setting and I worked in the youth setting, and throughout this whole trend, like throughout all those different phases, either my athletes were fathers or, they had fathers, especially in the youth area. Like I got to work with the kids, but then their fathers are like right on the other side of the gate or right on the other side of the training floor. And so I started to build these relationships with fathers. And what I realized is that like I can definitely make an impact with the kid, but that leaves after the training session is over, right? I can drop some gems in there, and I can say some things that are going to kind of help mold them. But if I could get that group of fathers in the room, right, and I can share with them some of the things that I've learned and some of the things that I've read or some of the things that I understand from psychology and things like that, then I could even more so impact the next generation, right? And so forfeit fatherhood is based on four tenets. It's family, faith, finance, and fitness. Obviously family is the most, if we're talking about fathers and fatherhood, family's got to be the most thing, right? Like, so your family, and that's not just you being a parent to your child, it's also about your relationship with your significant other, with the people around you, right? That close-knit family unit is important for your child to have through their development. Um, Faith, and then the faith part is like, I'm Christian, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Christianity, right? It's whatever your faith is, those values allow you or help you, guide you in the raising of your children, in your interactions, in your relationships. And so I think that's super important too, regardless if you're a Christian or Muslim or anything else, right? And then finance, I mean, we're all fathers. We have that, whether we want to or not, we have that pull to provide. A lot of us are going to lean towards financial providing, but then also, we have to provide emotionally. But finance is important because kids are expensive, right?
I know
So
that's right.
so we have some financial literacy that we do as well, and then finally fitness, right? And like I said, I'm a strength conditioning coach. The fitness part, if you're a father and you love fatherhood as much as I do, you obviously want to be a father for as long as you possibly can. And the way to do that is to be as physically fit as you can so you can live longer, right? Like I want to be a great grandfather, and I don't want to be the great grandfather that's in the back room at somebody's house and you got to come in. I want to be a great grandfather that's in the living room hanging out at all the family event. I want to be that guy, right? I want to be able to see each generation after me. I want to see my children's children's children, kind of thing. So I figured those four things are probably the most important. And there's obviously other things that go along with being a father. There's, an endless amount of things that go along with it.
Right.
But those four pillars, in my opinion, kind of prop up the father, and those are things that we actually focus on.
Right. And I agree with you. And just talking, looking at the four, family. I know you mentioned that you have four sisters, so we kind of in the same boat with that. Is nine of us all together, four sisters, three brothers besides myself, so that's nine. And so family is definitely big, to me also. And just in general, when we talk about fatherhood, it it molds you in a different way. And you talk about family, and so when you talk about, because I know one thing that I mention a lot when I talk about my daughter is my sisters, and that relationship with my sisters, and even my mom, and also how that cultivates your relationship with your daughter, before you even have a daughter. So as you were saying earlier about being soft or whatever, I'm like, nah, that ain't got nothing to do with it. Because even like you said, even if you're the hardest dude alive, when that
Right,
little girl comes, it changes everything. you
right.
know and then that relationship that you have with your mom and your sisters and your other female siblings and even friends and even your wife also, all that plays a part in how you react to your daughter, and then
Mhm.
just how you react to your family in general, because even though you didn't have sons or you don't have a son yet, like I said, I don't have a biological son, but I have four stepsons. So it still plays a part in how you relate. How you relate. Like I said, I got five brothers, so that relationship with my five brothers, not five brothers, I have three brothers. It's 5 of us all together. So my relationship with my brothers, who are all different, you know, uh, kind of helped me, guided me a little bit with my relationship with my stepsons, and each of them is different. So when I talk to them and mentor them and try to encourage them and everything and guide them as a father figure, it's a different relationship with each one of them. So definitely family is one of those big pillars. And like yourself, I am a Christian also. So in faith, bringing them up in faith and what to believe and how you believe and being able to rely on God when everything else seems like it's going wrong. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And not only that, but when we reflect back to family, having that groundwork and that foundation of the word to say this is how you even operate in your family.
Right.
So I definitely just agree on all points, like you said, with the 4 values. Definitely finance. You know what I'm saying? Because as a man, and this is, you can tell me how you feel about this and what you think about this, because just me personally, I think that although as a man, or as men in general, we all have our different roles that we take, in order to provide for our families and the things that we do. But I think going back even to the word, one of the things that God told Adam to do was to till the land, which basically meant he had to work with his hands. And I know it with technology and everything that has happened over the years, we've got so smart, we got all these machines and things. But I just think there's a component of manhood that comes from being able to do something with your hands. You know what I'm saying? Whether you're building something, whether you're creating something, just to be able to do something with your hands. So what would be your viewpoint of that? Because like I said, I know we got so smart and we got all this technology and everything, but when it comes down just to the basics, to be able to go do something, I don't know, fix a car, whatever, everybody's not mechanics, whatever, but I just think it's some value that comes from our insides when we work with our hands on doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's kind of innate, right? That want to build things and create things and work with your hands. Like, um, I just remember when I was a kid, like just being a young boy, like I used to take stuff apart and try to put it back together. Like if you left a remote around, like we had a remote control that was around that, like it didn't. Oh, I was taking that thing apart. I'm messing with the chips, putting the buttons in. Um, so like it just kind of comes naturally, I think, for boys to start to do that kind of thing. I think as you get older and you become an adult and you become, the head of a household, a father, there is a pull for you to be, like you said, the one that tills the land, right? The one that goes out and does some of the work. I think, society has changed quite a bit. I think the percentages, because I did an episode on this like too long ago, it's like 60% of the households are like dual income households versus like in the 70s where it's like 20%. Right. So there's a huge difference, like you said, with technology and all those things coming around. And even though we're splitting those responsibilities in terms of, finances coming into the household, guys are still drawn towards building things. And it's a little different now. Like it may be creating an app or creating a platform or creating some kind of computer program, but there's still like this urge to work with your hands, right? To do something that requires you to get up and be active in some way. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't by
No, yeah.
myself on that island, because I do construction. I'm in construction, and I've always been into building stuff. I remember the first thing that I remember that I actually built was a go-kart, right? And don't ask me how, and I'm still kind of amazed at this myself when I think about it, because my dad was a mechanic, right? So he had a garage full of tools. So how I knew how to use a drill or a hammer and all this, I have no idea, but I built this go-kart out of old wagon parts and wood, You know what I'm saying? And it's still, when I think about it now as how young I was at that time, it's like, I don't even know how I knew how to do that,
Yeah.
but I just did. So that was something that I always remember. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't, on this island by
No,
myself with that,
no.
working with your hands thing. So, you know what, I want to talk about, mention one thing that I know you addressed, but you didn't actually mention it. And I was watching one of your videos that you posted. I want to say it was recent. I'm not sure how recent it was. And actually was a clip of Lil Wayne. And after he finished talking, then you kind of spoke on it, and that kind of touched me. Excuse me. So I want you to touch on that a little bit, also, because it was three questions that he mentioned, and you addressed the three questions. And those three questions was: Did I live? Did I love? And did I matter? And I think even more, not just as being fathers, but I think just as being men in general. We don't share a lot. We don't always open up. We don't always have that platform, of friends or just people that we trust to be vulnerable with, to speak our hearts. So we don't always address these things. But I listened to those three questions, and I was like, man, I'm sure, and just from my personal self, I know that I've probably asked myself those questions, and so I'm thinking that just as men in general, those probably are three questions that's important to all of us,
Mhm.
and so you address them on your platform. So just give us a little bit, more about what you think about those three questions, and how they affect not only manhood but fatherhood also.
Yeah, so those three questions I typically use in reference to like at the end of your life. You want to look at those three questions. Did I live? Did I love? And did I matter? And you want to be able to like give a all caps yes, right? Like with an exclamation point and all of that, right? You want to be able to say, yes, I absolutely lived life to the fullest. I did everything that I could possibly do. With everything God gave me, I left it all on the field kind of situation, right? Did I love? Did I spend my lifetime giving love out into the world? Did I love the people around me? Did I love my enemy even though they were my enemy kind of thing? Like was I a gift to the world, or was I a sour note in people's mouth, right? Like and did I matter? Did I go out in my lifetime and do something that was impactful to the world around me? Right? Maybe not on a grand scale, right? Like I didn't impact an entire country, but in my family unit, right, and the people in my neighborhood, right, or my city, my job, did I matter? Like if I left today, would they tomorrow be like, oh man, where's Rod at? Like I could really use that guy. Really, whatever it is that I do, like man, I really wish that guy was here right now. And I mentioned it like at the end of your life, but really honestly, it's a reflection. It's a set of reflection questions that I start to think about every day. Right at
Right.
the end of the day, I started journaling not too long ago, and at the end of the day, those top three questions, those questions are at the top of my list. Did I live today? Did I give everything that I could today, or did I push myself to get a little bit more? Was I better today than I was yesterday? Right? Did I love? Right? Did I spend the day bitter and angry with someone? Right? And did I hold on to that? Am I carrying that to bed with me? Right? Am I going to take that into the next day? Because tomorrow has its own problems. Right? There's no need to bring today's issues into tomorrow. So I like to solve problems as quickly as we can and get them over with. Right? And like I said, I want to give love to everyone around me. Right? I want to be, again, I want to matter. Right? And if you're the type of person that like people don't want to be around when you're not around, they're like, they're, they're you don't matter in the wrong, you matter for all the wrong reasons. Like, oh man,
Right.
God, I can't believe, whew, you know what I mean? I don't want to be that person, right? And so I think in order for us to live life to the fullest, which I think we all want to do, like I don't think anybody wants to like, leave some life on the plate, leave something on the table or leave here before we're supposed to. Then you have to be able to answer those questions with a yes. And I throw one more extra question in, and I didn't mention it in the video because he was talking more specifically about those. But I think one question that kind of sums all those up, and it kind of is the root of all of those, is am I enough? Right? Am I enough is a question that we ask ourselves when we're afraid of something. Typically, like we don't do something or we're afraid of something because we don't know that we're enough. You know what I mean? We don't know that we could get it done. Right? We may shy away from going in a certain direction. Like with leaving my job, right? I had considered it for quite some time, right? But I shied away from it because I was afraid that I don't even know if I was afraid that I was going to fail or I was afraid I was going to be successful, right? Because that was my identity, right? I was a conditioning coach. I was a director of the largest gym, like largest athletic gym in Southern California. That was who I was. I mean, I was a father, and that was first in my heart. But like even today, I heard myself say it. Right, I'm a strength and conditioning coach. Like that was my title, right? And so it's one of those things where like, am I going to be enough if I'm not a strength and conditioning coach? Right? Am I enough in this world without this title, without this, without that support of my job? And I think that helps you answer those questions. If you feel like you're enough, you've lived, right? If you feel like you're enough, then you've loved, right? And if you feel like you're enough, then you definitely matter. And again, I think at the end of each day, at the end of each week, or whenever you do your reflection, you want to answer those questions 100% yes. And if you don't, right? And if you don't, then you have some work to do.
Right. Because that's what I thought when I heard him, and like you said, I think even when he mentioned that he was kind of mentioning the end of your life. But when I
Right.
heard the questions, I'm like, man, that's now, that's today. Because if you ask yourself those questions today and you answer no to those questions, then you still have time to change it. So I would advise anybody to ask themselves them questions today instead of waiting to the end. Because if you're at the end, you can't change it. But right now, we're in a position where you can change it. So is have I loved? And love is one of those things that the more you give away, the more you get. And people always say, I'm looking for love, looking for love. Well, you can't find it if you're not getting it. If you're just looking to receive it, you're never gonna find it.
Right.
The way you get it, love and respect is in that same vein. The more you give away, the more you get. And then when we talk about uh did I matter or did I impact the world, like you mentioned, and I think that sometimes we look at our lives on a grand scale, right? And we're like, well, I didn't impact the world. What I didn't change, the way that, the United States moves or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But I think if we step back and look at things, we may not impact the world, but we can impact our world. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? And then the people that we talk to and the people that we connect, we can impact their world. You know,
Right.
then when we impact our world and their world, then we know that we matter. Because we've made a difference in our lives, we made a difference in our families' lives, we may even made a difference in the lives of our children or the lives of their friends, whoever. Just touching somebody, and we know that we've mattered in this life. And I like what you said about the question of are we enough? And I think that's another, definitely, if you need to be on the list. So maybe we need to write a list. But that's definitely one of those questions that need to be on there because it touches so many different things. That one question, it makes you evaluate yourself, in so many different areas. And a lot of times, we fear what we don't understand. And sometimes we fear, I know you mentioned a second ago, we fear success. And I know, like you said, we talked about you have two daughters, so I'm sure you watch Keela and the Bee, and it's that one statement that was said in the movie, and it was that I'm not saying exactly how he said it, but it was that our biggest fear is, that we will be successful,
Mm-hmm.
not that we will fail, but we'll be successful, and I think that's one of those fears too that as men we don't always address, but I think it's an undertone of everything that we do,
Right.
and I can even say myself as a in construction, I'm a bricklayer, and growing into that role and learning it, it was different aspects of it that I strayed away from. I kind of backed away from because it was like, man, I don't know if I can do it. I don't
Right.
know if it's gonna come out right. I don't know if it's going to be acceptable. But now, I'm almost 20 years in, and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. What's new? And just kind of move on to the next thing, and you're confident in your abilities. But a lot of times, if we continue to stray away from the opportunity to prove even to ourselves that we can do it, then again we are afraid of that success. You know, so another thing that I wanted to ask you about, when we're talking about even those three questions and talk about fatherhood, and I know that you are a coach, and I think this is something that you also talk about is mindset, right? And
Mm-hmm.
because, like I said, as men and as fathers, generally, and then especially as fathers, because as fathers, we deal with a special uh, kind of circumstance when it comes to, taking care of family, because you have a wife, you have kids, you have people that are depending directly on you, and so our mindset has to be in the right place. And like I said,
Mm-hmm.
we don't always have that outlet, and we don't have to always have that person who we can go to and talk about things that we're dealing with. So sometimes we have to be strong for ourselves. So when we talk about mindset, wonder tell me something, or just kind of speak on it a little bit about, as fathers, just having the right mindset in order to make correct moves and operate within this thing we call fatherhood.
Yeah, so I mean, mindset is key. I've heard it said that mindset is your greatest asset, right? Because your mindset allows you to make moves that maybe you aren't ready for. And kind of touching back on that fear of success situation, right? Like sometimes we're afraid of success because we know that if we're successful, it's going to require us to be different, right? We're going
Mm.
to have like once I'm successful at this, now I'm this, and I have to be this, and I have to live up to the standard of this, and I'm not ready for that, right? So your mindset going into fatherhood, throughout fatherhood, um, is it's got to be like you instantly become a leader, whether you want to or not, right?
Mm.
Whether that's your personality, whether that's your job title, like it doesn't matter. You're instantly a leader because that little girl or that little boy is going to follow you, right? They may not listen to you all the time when you tell them, but they're following you, right? They're paying attention to you, they're watching you, and so if your mindset is what like a growth mindset, right? Where you feel like with a growth mindset, you feel like you're always able to improve, always able to grow. If you feel like you're maxed out, right, and you can't do anything more, and this is all I've got, then you're putting yourself in a very limiting situation, right? But if your mindset is a mindset of growth or abundance, and there's like a bunch of mindset types we could talk about, but basically your mindset allows you to pursue more, to do more, to be more, right? So if you're not in the right mindset, then if something happens at home, you're not able to handle it, right? Like, I mean, having you're further away from having toddlers than I am. So you pack the bags, you guys are heading out, and as soon as you get in the car, oh, you got to change the diaper.
Right.
We got to be there in 15 minutes. Like I got places like now I got to change the diaper, start changing the diaper. Now the bottle, now we got to, like all these things are happening. But if your mindset is strong, those things are like just kind of just roll off your back, right? Because as the leader, you can't be shaken, right? Or you can be, right? You can be, and it's okay to be, but you understand that it's a part of the process, right? And that part of the process is helping you grow, right? That situation that typically you would take as a negative, you don't take losses, you take lessons, right? You either win or you learn, right? So when something happens, when your mindset is right, if it isn't what you wanted, then you figure out what you can learn from it and you grow. And I think fatherhood is that. Like, our fatherhood is like that never ending uh, thing, right? You're always learning how to be a better father, how to talk to your children the way they need to hear you, right? How to be the husband or significant other that your wife or your girlfriend or fiance needs, because you want to be better eternally. Like, you're always in a quest to be better, and not in a sense where like you're unhappy with who you are. You're very happy with who you are, but you know that you're capable of more. And that mindset is huge. It's absolutely huge.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Definitely the mindset, and I this last year or so, I really got into personal development myself. And once you tap into that, you realize you have a long way to go. And it's exciting. You know what I mean? When you start growing and you start investing in yourself, how that it strengthens you, and it lifts you up, and then you're able to, going back to what we're saying about did you matter, you're able to affect those around you and lift them up just by your own knowledge. So definitely, I'm big into mindset. I'm big into personal development. And I heard a quote the other day, and the gentleman said that your mind is the dumbest muscle in your body because it believes whatever you tell it. you know. And I'm like, man, that's right on. He was like, so if you want to be great, tell yourself that you're great. You know what I'm saying? Tell yourself, just tell yourself whatever it is you want to accomplish, whatever it is, and you will believe it. Your
Yep.
mind will believe it. And once your mind believes it, then you'll be able to build on it, and act on it, and, just turn yourself into whoever it is that you're trying to be. So
Right.
again, Rod, I thank you so very much for coming on and sharing your time with us. I have is one question, but it's three parts. Actually, it's
Okay.
four parts, right? So I'm gonna let you answer these kind of, and then you have the last say. You can give your contact information and all of that, or whatever things you have to promote. Feel free to promote it. So when we're talking about fatherhood, one of the post statements that I've seen on your platform, if I'm not mistaken, I think it said that you coach new fathers and expectant fathers, right? Did
Mm-hmm.
I get that right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was thinking about fathers, there are four types of fathers that came to mind, right? So one is the absent father, one is the stepfather, one is the new father, and the last is the reconnecting father. So I'm gonna kind of touch each one, and I'll let you kind of give your viewpoint on the different ones. So the first one is being the absent father, and that's the father that have kids, and for one reason or another, he's not involved and not around. Sometime of because of no fault of his own. So, what would be something that you would just a nugget that you might drop to him as a father to encourage him that is not too late to you know take on that mantle and take your place as a father.
Right. I'll say this: your presence is the best present. Right. No matter what you may be able to provide for your children financially, or through gifts, you being there is the best possible thing that they can want. Right. Like, it's really honestly the only thing they can want. And no matter when it happens, right, sooner than later would be better. But no matter when it happens, they're always going to be grateful for you to come back in their life. Like, I think sometimes, you when it happens for a longer period of time, you're like, oh man, I'm not around. And the time goes on for so long, you're like, well, they don't miss me. I'm gonna move on, right? But you are forever connected to that person, right? You share not just like shared DNA, but your spirit is intertwined with that little person. And as they grow into a big person, you being there is something that they'll always think about. They'll always yearn for. Even if when you come back, they reject you, right? That getting back into their life adds new life to them, right? Because we are all connected, right? Me and my children are connected. Like when we're apart for a while, I feel bad. You know what I mean? Like if I had to go on a work trip. I was going for like 3 days, and I'm like, man, I don't even know what's wrong with me. My voice ain't the same. Like I feel different. So I can't imagine being gone from there for an extended period of time. But I do know that getting back into their lives is huge. When I was younger, for a period of time when my mother and father split up, I didn't see my father for a few years. And then when he was back in our lives, it was like every other weekend because of visitation or and then that was even sporadic. But I know every time I saw him, it was like Christmas Day. You know what I mean? No matter what the reason was that I didn't see him, right? And I knew why, and I was frustrated with him. I was mad at him. But like when he showed up, right, when that 280Z pulled into the driveway, I was mad. You know what I mean? It didn't matter. Like I was gonna get to see my dad, right? And all those other feelings that I had, they fell off, right? So for absent dads, man, I say there's always time. Right? There's never too late, right? It's always gonna matter. You matter, right? You matter. You have to be in their lives in some way when you get a chance, as soon as you get a chance, and as often as you get a chance.
Right. And I like your explanation for that because I think that actually touches on uh, the absent father and the reconnecting father, which is the father that has been absent that's coming back. And I know that one of the things that I mentioned, because with me working with fatherless daughters, that's one of the things I do address. The fathers also, like after you've been gone for a while, when you come back, you want to make sure you're coming back on the right track. You're coming back with the right focus. You're coming back, and when you come back, first of all, it's about the child. This is not your time to tell them why you weren't there and what your mama did, and this, it ain't that time. It's time for the child, right? It's about the child. The next one is also make sure that you're listening to them. There will come a time when they're going to ask you, why weren't you there? But let them address that. Let them have that floor. Don't come in trying to prove a point because you're going to lose them. Because they already going to have attitude because you ain't been there. Now you just getting here and now you're trying to defend yourself. You're like, no, just follow them. And one of the books that I was reading by a fatherless daughter, and she talked about a moment that she had with her biological father who had been absent as an adult. When she was able to have a conversation with him, she asked him why he wasn't there. And as he kind of went in to give his explanation of why he wasn't there, she stopped him. She said, I don't want to hear, none of your excuses. All I want to hear you say is, I'm sorry. And she said he said he was sorry, and they both started crying, and that was a healing moment for both of them. And I think that's something that reconnecting fathers definitely need to take heed of. Just say you're sorry for not being there, and be there. Be there while you're present. Like you said, the best present is your presence. And since you're present, give them that gift of being present, emotionally, attentively, So yeah, I'm glad that you kind of touched on both of those. So the next one I want to talk about, which you probably don't have any any experience in, but I do, which is the stepfather. And this one was kind of tripped out to me because I seen a post on it wasn't Instagram, it was TikTok. I seen a post on TikTok, and the guy was saying, yes, someone said to him, he was talking about his kids. He was a stepfather, and the person said to him, "Or you're just a stepdad, so you can stay in your place." And so he went to his kids and he asked them, "Am I just a stepdad?" and each one of them said no. And then he was like, what am I? And they was like, you're my father, you're my dad. So I thought that was real touching, especially being a stepfather myself, especially a stepfather to boys. You know what I mean? Boys and girls are totally different. When you come to the raising, like I said, the girls bring out our softer side. The boys are gonna bring out that other side, because they gonna test you, they gonna push you, and especially as being a stepfather, is that extra element of not being their biological father that brings on a whole nother dynamic of its own. So if you were to address a stepfather, like I said, I don't know if you have any experience in that arena of being a stepfather, but it's still fatherhood in general. So what would be something that you would say to a stepfather?
So I have had a stepfather. I mean, I still do. Our relationship isn't as tight as, I mean, it was never really tight, but like I haven't talked to him in a long time, so I say it's not as tight. But I think that's a really tough, as an adult now, I look at it, that's a really tough role to step into, right? There's like a lot of gray area on like, how you parent and how you're in a relationship and how do you talk about this kid, or like, are you raising them as your own? Is that okay? Like, do they call you dad? Like, or, are you referring to them? And so I think every situation is a little bit different. I think what stepfathers have to do is be sensitive to that situation, right? Because there is a fractured relationship, not only with the mother and the father of the child, but the the father of the child and the actual child. And you're kind of wedging yourself in the middle as like a bridge between the two, because you're going to help father this child now. And so a lot of times, like I was never like this, but I knew kids who had stepdads, but not my real daddy kind of thing. I never felt that way, right? Like he stepped up when my dad was gone, and he did what he had to do, right? And so I think for stepfathers, like again, it's a being present, be emotionally intelligent about the situation. When you come into it, you need to talk to your now wife or significant other about what that dynamic is. You need to get some clarity, right? Because there's a role for you to play here, and you can't be like, if I'm gonna go play for the Lakers, right? And they got like all stars right now. I'm gonna be a role player, right? Like I can't go in there and be like Ron Ball. You know what I mean? Like he ain't throw me the ball. And pretty soon he'll be off the team. So I need to know how to fit into this thing to support the situation. Now, if it's completely in shambles, now I can come in as an all-star and bring this thing back together. So if you don't understand the team you're being, traded to or drafted by,
Right.
it definitely sets you up for some unnecessary hiccups. And so I think getting some real clarity with your partner on what the dynamics of that relationship is with the child and their father, with her and the father, and then how you can best work in that relationship. I would even take it a step further, and depending on the age of the child, as you're coming into their life, it may be okay for you to ask, like, depending on the maturity of the child, right? Like,
Right.
how can I best support you? Right? Like I know I'm not your father, and I don't want to. I'm never going to be able to replace him. Right? He's the one that gave you life, but I am here now to help support you in any way that I can. How can I support you? Right? Like I'm going to have to be, like I'm the man in the relationship. I'm going at some point I'm going to have to discipline you. Sometimes you're going to do things wrong, and I'm going to have to be the one to step in and set you straight a little bit. But know that I'm doing it out of love, and not just love for your mother, right? I'm doing it out of love for you. When I said I do to this woman, I also said I do to you, and I want to treat you with the most respect that I can, and still father you like a father should. So
Right.
it's a tough road, man. I commend you, right? I always think back to my stepfather in life, even though like he worked like all the time, right? Like he worked a regular 40-hour shift and he worked overtime almost every day for my entire life. So I didn't see him much. Like when he wasn't working, he was sleeping. And so I always am like, I think about it and I kind of like, I can't say I regret it, but like, I don't know what I learned from him other than to be a workaholic, right? Like we never had those father-son conversations, right? Because he was working or sleeping, right? So we never got to have those kind of talks. And we never talked about like what to do with girls and all that kind of stuff. Like I was figuring it out on my own. When I got to talk to my dad about it, he kind of gave me like a fluff answer too. So like, you know what I mean? Like it was never that kind of relationship with my stepfather. And so that's why I'm like, it's hard for me to say what a stepfather should do. I know that he stepped up though, right? And he provided for the family. And he went out and he tilled the soil till he had to, you know what I mean? Like he was out there
Right.
grinding to make sure we had it. And I think that's something that I learned from him, almost to a detriment. Like I'm a worker. Like I'll get out there. Like I said, I'll work 12, 16-hour days before I even think about it. And which is why I stepped away because I realized I was becoming who he was. And I didn't want to do that. So I guess my message for stepfathers is to I don't know, man. I think clarity has got to be like the message. Like get some clarity on what you're entering into, and not just you're in love with this woman, right? Because that love can blind you, right? Get
Right.
very clear on what that relationship is and how you can best fit into it, and not how you can change it, how you can best fit into it.
Right. And I agree with you. It's a I as being a stepdad, I definitely have a different outlook. Not a different, but I have a special outlook on it just by the experience that I've have and I've had. And definitely you want to get clarity on, what really is your position, in this family, because you're coming into the family. And definitely with the kids, I know that I took that stance of, letting them know from the beginning, I know I'm not your father and I'm not trying to be your father, but I'm going to stand in until he gets here, because when he did come around, like you said, of course, even in your experience, when he came around, you was happy to see him,
Mm-hmm.
so when my son's father would come around, I definitely would give him that space, to operate as their father, and I would always step back and let him have that time, have that experience, to be able to get to know them and them get to know him and whatever the situation was. But I definitely know that is a special thing in your heart for step parents in general, because you love a child because you choose to,
Right.
and I think that a lot of people overlook that, because when you have your own child, you automatically love them,
Mm-hmm.
because they are part of you. But when you can take someone else's child and love them because you choose to love them, I think that's a different kind of love, and I think that's a different kind of person, that actually the ones that actually honor that position as being a step parent, because of course there are some that take advantage of the position and don't fulfill it the way that it should be. But for those that honor that position, I think it's a special thing for them. One more question, the last one, and again, I'm gonna let you address it, and then you can give your contact information and whatever it is that you want to leave with the listeners, and that is advice for a new father.
Man, so this is one that I talk to a lot of guys about, man, and going back to that "Am I enough?" question. I think that's one of the things that plagues new and expecting fathers the most, right? That's the scariest thing. Is a lot of the fathers I deal with are black fathers, and I mean, I hate to say this, but a lot of them didn't have their father
Mhm.
present, or like their father comes from a generation where like men don't talk and share feelings, and so he was a father figure, right? He was the head of the household. He doled out the discipline, but they don't know how to be a father. He never had those fatherhood conversations. And I think that's one thing that we don't get very often anyway. Is like no one talks to men about how to be a father until you become a father. Then everybody's got got this advice for you, but no one's like telling you as you're getting closer to that age, like, hey, when you become a dad. No one, like my dad didn't come back to me when I was, when me and my wife got married and say, hey man, the next step of life, you're probably going to be having kids. Here's what to expect, right? You don't hear what to expect until you're expecting. And then even that's super general, right? Like it doesn't really give you any game on like what's going to happen when the baby comes. Like what's the relationship with your wife going to be? How is that going to work with sleep and all these different things, right? And so my advice for new fathers is to, and this is my advice for all fathers, is to take it day by day, right? You win the morning, you win the day. So first thing in the morning, right? You want to start your day off if you can, right? Because kids have other plans, right? They'll do whatever they want to do, right? But you start your day with gratitude, right? Like you're now a father. You have a legacy now. When you wake up in the morning, you wake up with purpose and passion. Like you have something to live for. You've officially found something that you, and I say this all the time too, is once you find something you would die for, go live for it, right? Like every father I know, for the most part, would take a bullet for their family, for their kid, right? Like we would sacrifice ourselves so that they would live. So if you found something that you'd be willing to die for, go live for it. When you wake up in the morning, you're grateful for the opportunity to go out and attack another day because you've got this person, this small version of you that that looks like you when you were a kid, um, that is depending on you, right? Depending on you to be all that you could possibly be, right? Depending on you to live, depending on you to love, right? Depending on you to matter, to be impactful. So when you ask yourself, am I enough? The answer is yes, right? You're fully capable of being the best possible father it is. You're not going to mess it up, right? There's no right way to do it. You've got it. Just go do it, right? And then if you feel like after you've done it, you didn't do it right, do it better. That's it. All
Right.
right. There's no wrong way because every child is different. Nobody can tell you, and maybe that's why people don't have these conversations. Nobody can tell you exactly how to raise your child, right? Nobody should tell you exactly how to raise your child because your child is an individual and a product of the decisions that you and your significant other makes, right? And so you have to parent your child the way that you would parent your child, and be okay with the outcomes, right? Because again, you're capable, right?
Right. And the one thing that I love and is when we talk about fathers, and even I definitely love the term expecting fathers. That just it just bring a whole nother aspect to it. Cause like, yeah, you may not be carrying the baby, but you're definitely expecting too. You know,
Yeah.
and the one thing that I love about fatherhood is just it's never ending. Like you said, you have a legacy. And I know you mentioned earlier about me not being in the toddler stage, as far as a father anymore. Well, I kind of am because now I got two granddaughters. You know what
There
I'm
you go.
saying? And so it starts all over again. It's a different chapter, a different dynamic, but it's just another page in fatherhood. So now you go from being a father to being a grandfather, and it just changes, but it still carries that same weight. So again, Rod, man, I definitely enjoyed talking to you. Definitely thank you so very much for being on. So give our listeners your contact information and anything you got going on that you want to promote. Just let them know where they can find you and how they can get in contact with you.
So I got a ton of things going on, so I don't want to like run down a whole list of things. I definitely would, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. So the best thing to do is my at is right there. Is that at you can call me coach. That is my primary social media on Twitter, on Instagram. That's probably the best place to find me if you're looking for for content from me. You want to DM me or something like that. Um, My podcast, the Forfeit Fatherhood podcast, as we talked about earlier, where we cover those four pillars, is just that. It's the Forfeit Fatherhood podcast. If you want to find it online, if you're looking for it, you can find it at www.forfeitfatherhood.com. All the episodes are there. There's a blog there too where I'm posting some stuff as well. That's probably going to be the best way to get me, right? Because I'm checking there, I'm posting there. You're going to get all the good information that I have. I share as much as I can on those two platforms.
All right. All right. Again, thank you so very much for joining us. To all the listeners, thank you guys for checking in and listening again. And we're going to see you guys next week. Again, this is Ernest James. This is the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. And I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problems, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. So until next time, we will see you next week. All right.